before we get into the main subject of the video, I thought we'd have a short sidebar. And I'm going to go ahead and install a card reader in my main computer. Ah, yes. Rarely seen interior of my main computer. Okay, so here's the card reader, which you cannot really see. So we'll turn on the video light, and now you can see it. This was a freebie. There's nothing special about it. It's got some dirt in it. But my hope is that it will actually work to read SD cards and compact flash, because that's really all that I use. But obviously this is 3.5 inch, and there's no 3.5 inch external drive bay on this. One would probably go here if it actually would fit there, but clearly not. So I had to actually buy a 5.25 to 3.5 inch bay adapter. And apparently these are hard to find, because this is the only one that I could find off of Newegg for an overinflated price, if you ask me. Because you get one adapter, and then you get the mounting screws, and I think it's just the mounting screws for the actual bay itself. It's not for mounting another drive in it. So that's kind of annoying. There's nothing else really about it. It's just some cheap thing. In fact, here it is. It's literally just a chunk of plastic. So I think it cost me like $15, not including the shipping, which is about $150 too much. Just my personal opinion. So I'm going to mount that stupid card reader in this thing, and then we'll go ahead and mount it in the computer. Okay, well, it's in place. It actually doesn't look too bad, all things considered. Unfortunately, the screws are not going to match, because I don't have a whole lot of fine thread screws. It drives me nuts when the screws are not the same type, but at least they're all Phillips. You know, I can't stand it when people use one flathead, one Phillips, one Robertson. I didn't even know they made Robertson screws for computers. And like a Torx screw, or those weird off-brand screws. I don't know. I just use Phillips in computers, please. Like, that's all that you need to do. So now I gotta get this bay out so I can actually put this in place. Well, it's superbly annoying. It's not sitting in there right. I don't know why. There's nothing that it could possibly be sitting on. So, do not understand. I'm going to have to do some serious moving work, it looks like. Stupid thing is plugged in now, after it decided to be a total just pain in the butt for no reason at all. Like, no excuse for that. Thank God I didn't have to pull out the video card, because that would have really made me mad. Like, I don't understand what's up with cables these days and not wanting to plug into the connectors you're supposed to plug in. And I still don't get why this won't fit. I think that's ridiculous, because it's not sitting on anything. It's just being dumb for no reason at all. So it's going to stay this way. I actually do not care. I don't care. If it wants to be dumb, then it can sit and look dumb and, you know, feel sorry for itself. So putting the cover on, and I'm going to wrap up this part of the video, because it's now taken, like, what, 3 minutes? They should have taken 1. Should have been nothing. That's why it's a sidebar. Okay, well, as it turns out, this whole exercise is a waste of time, because it doesn't even work. Watch this. Plug it in, green light comes on. It knows that something's there, but it's too stupid to actually work properly. Incorrect function. What the hell does that even mean? Drives me nuts. So out it comes. I'm just going to put this all back and put it in another computer, see if it works there. If not, I'm going to microwave it, because this is dumb. Okay, so that's it for this part of the video. We're going to move on to something else, something that's a little bit better and more interesting. Okay, back to a little bit of reality here. Some of you might remember a video that I recently, at least as of the making of this video, uploaded, where I rebuilt my home theater PC using an Intel build. It was a 10600K and an Asus motherboard, and I did a lot of complaining in that video about various parts of the Intel platform being stupid. And I'm going to stand behind pretty much everything that I said about the Intel platform being stupid, because it is stupid. Number one is there is absolutely no excuse in the year 2021 to have a CPU that uses 125 watts worth of TDP. And I know somebody's going to turn around and they're going to be like, TDP is not the wattage that the CPU uses. Yeah, I don't care. That's not even really my point. So maybe using 125 watts of TDP is not the right description. Generating 125 watts worth of TDP, sure. You know, I mean, the non-K SKU is 65 watts, which is way more reasonable than 125. A lot of Pentium 4s weren't even 125 watts. So what is it about the K SKU that bumps it up that high? I don't get it. It's just, you know, evidence of de-optimization, I guess is the word that I'm going to use. You know, like, there's frankly no excuse for that. You know, 105 watts, okay, sure, I can get that. 95 watts, sure, yeah, I can get 95 and 105. 125? Come on. Even the large-scale AMD chips are not 125 watts. So, no, that's dumb. The ability to not boot to CSM when you're using the onboard video on an Intel 500 series chipset, that's dumb. There's no excuse for that either. The cooler, okay, I'll concede them on the cooler because, you know, let me see, do I have one handy? I do have one here. Let me see if I can get it. The aluminum pancake, that is the Intel stock cooler, is not going to dissipate 45 watts, let alone 125. And they know that, which is why they don't include a cooler, I guess. And okay, sure, there are some AMD chips that don't come with coolers. I get it. So, whatever, I'll concede them that. But again, 125 watts makes it really difficult to find a cooler that's not a liquid cooler and that's going to actually fit in a case that is something like this. So what's the solution? I'll show you the solution. A giant RGB UFO. That is the solution. You know, it's unfortunate that it's so dark outside that I have to actually use the video light on the computer when it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's the middle of summer. What is going on? Anyway, so here it is, the Cooler Master MasterAir G100m. Low-profile CPU cooler with heat column technology. It's compatible with all these things. Basically, every motherboard's RGB controller, including the one for the Asus board that I actually have, the RS Sync, which I think is used on pretty much all Asus boards that have been manufactured this century. Anyway, supports LGA 1200. It better, because that's kind of why I bought it, right? Anyway, it includes an RGB controller, which I'll never use. Heat column, basically it's just got a giant copper slab in the middle of it. RGB ring. Like I said, it's a giant UFO, basically. And it's an RGB UFO. It's way more gamer bling than I really want, but it will dissipate. I think it's rated for 130 watts. It's certainly good enough for the 125 watts that the chip uses. Does it actually say on it somewhere? You'd think it would be in the specs, which you can pause the video to read. Maybe you'll find it faster than I do. But it looks like it does not actually tell you the TDP that it can dissipate. Funny enough, it actually will support the LGA 775 still, so that's kind of neat. Not that I'd use something as nice as this on a piece of crap 775 board. So, anyway, it's actually downright huge if you take a look at the dimensions. And the one thing that really kind of bothers me, I don't know if it's going to be tall enough to clear the heat sinks on the RAM, but I guess we'll find out. So I'm going to unbox this stupid thing, and we'll take a look at it, and then we'll install it. Here it is, in all of its glory. The RGB UFO. It looks like, looking at the directions, it actually comes with a proper mounting system. So that's neat. Certainly not what I expected. I'm not sure if I need to use the included RGB thing. I don't think so. I'm not going to install it because I'm never going to use it. But I am going to have to put this bracket together, which unfortunately means I'm going to have to pull the motherboard in order to install this. But small price to pay for having proper mounting hardware. So I'm going to assemble this UFO, and then we'll go ahead and we'll install it. Okay, so this is what's left of the mounting hardware that I need in order to install this in the case. Plus the thermal paste, which I'm going to just go ahead and use. It's cheap junk, no doubt, but you might as well use it rather than wasting it. I don't have any Arctic Silver 5 on hand. I have Arctic Ceramic 2, but that might not be any better than this, so what's the point? And then we got the little bracket, which I believe is set up properly for, let's call it 775, LGA 1200, which this doesn't actually explicitly support. It's worth mentioning. So, whatever, sure. Hopefully it'll work. It should work because it uses the same cooler setup as the 1150, which this does support, so at least Intel's managed to keep that consistent over the years. Okay, so I've gone ahead and unplugged pretty much everything from this that's not a pain in the butt to reattach. The fans I probably should unplug as well, but I'm going to leave them for the time being, just because this should be good enough for me to unscrew the board and lift it up enough to install the new heatsink. But you can see here's the old one, the tower cooler, which there's nothing wrong with. I just don't think that it's suitable for 125 watts worth of dissipation, one, and two, it doesn't really fit in this case. So even though the CPU temps are acceptable, I mean 60 degrees is kind of a little hot, but it's certainly more acceptable than like 80 or anything like that. But I'm going to go ahead and pull it out anyway. So that's what we'll do. We'll clean off the old thermal compound, and then we'll install the new cooler. There it is. Cleaned up probably about as good as I'm going to get it. So what we'll do now is I'll go ahead and I'll unscrew the board, and I'm going to put the plate on. And probably also the nuts that are supposed to go on it at the same time, because it looks like taking intermediate video might not be the best idea, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, well, the cooler is in. I did skip a bunch of steps because, well, it didn't look like it was going to be entertaining to try and shoot video of this while I was trying to install it, so hopefully you'll forgive me. I mean, this isn't a how to install a CPU cooler in a computer video. This is a I switched the CPU cooler on my computer, here it is video. But there it is, installed. For whatever reason, I don't know if I have a defective cooler or if I did something wrong, or maybe if that's just by design, but the brackets, the back plate, doesn't sit flush against the motherboard. And I tightened those standoff posts pretty tight, probably over-tightened them, really, and it still really didn't fit, so I didn't really want to force it and damage a brand new cooler or damage a brand new motherboard. So it doesn't sit flush, and what that means is when it's in the case it doesn't really matter, but when you're testing it or going to test it on a surface, the cooler is going to be sitting a little bit proud, and it might not actually make contact with the CPU. So that's a little disconcerting. Also kind of disconcerting is how difficult it is to actually install the nuts that hold the cooler down. That took forever. Like, that took probably a good 10 minutes to get those in. And I thought at times I was going to go get an actual wrench and put a wrench on there, although that would be a phenomenally bad idea, again for the same reason of you don't want to over-tighten it and damage new components. Plus, you know, I actually do kind of want to get it back off of there at some point in the as-yet undetermined future. So that is a thing. It does clear the heat sinks on the RAM, which is neat. However, it's only just barely, so I am never getting that RAM out of there until I remove the cooler. So hopefully that RAM works for a good long while, because I don't want to have to change it. So anyway, I also am not really sure how this RGB thing works. There's an arrow that I guess denotes where it's supposed to plug into pin 1, but pin 1 is not labeled on this board. It's plus 12 volts G, R, and B. So I aligned the arrow with the plus 12 volts, and I hope but that's not going to blow it up. I guess if it does, I don't really care, because RGB gamer bling is not my thing. It just would kind of suck to blow it up. You know, it's brand new, for crying out loud. So now I gotta plug in all the rest of the little bits and pieces, and then we can test it and watch the whole thing blow sky high. Maybe take off from Mars, because, you know, UFO and all that. Okay, TV is on. It says no signal, which is good, hopefully. So, let's see if I've got all the connections hooked up right. Which I think I do. There's our RGB UFO. I'm going to hit F2 to try and go into setup. Which hopefully will work with this keyboard. Oh, it ignored me. Of course it ignored me. It's well, it is working. It's just that I guess the motherboard doesn't like it. So, let me go ahead and try and get into setup again. Oh yeah, check out that idle temperature now. 35? That is impressive, my friends. So, let me see if I can... Unfortunately, this keyboard, you have to press the FN key in order to get the actual function keys, which is why it didn't go into setup. So, that was really annoying. Let me see if I can find the RGB stuff in this motherboard. Because I did notice that now it's glowing just blue, which I think is a motherboard thing. So let me see if I can find it. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. Oh, F4. What a fool. Let's see, all on stealth mode. What does that do? Does it actually change anything? No, I think I probably have to reboot in order to change it. I might just leave it alone. I think I will just leave it alone. We'll set to all on. We might as well. It's not like it's going to make that big of a difference. So we can just exit. I don't need to make any changes. We'll let it boot up. And we'll see what it does. I think I'll load up the sync tool and see if I can play around with it. Well, I had thought that this thing actually had automatically installed a program to deal with the RGB stuff, the RS sync, but I guess it didn't, or if it did, I can't find it. It's probably on the DVD, which, like I said, I'm still surprised they actually give you, but I don't really care enough to play with it. I think it's fine just as is. Nobody's going to see it. It's buried underneath the rack there, and it's not like the case has got like a window on it or anything. So, like when I put the cover on, like that, if I can actually put the cover on here, and the cover's on, you really almost don't even see it. So, I mean, you can maybe kind of see it a little bit through those fans, but for the most part, it's just those fans that you see. So, I think I'm going to call that good. I think everything worked out the way that it was supposed to, and finally the system is actually running nice and cool. So, thank you for watching. If you've got any comments, feel free to leave them down below. You can get an idea for the temperature that it is actually running at. Still not necessarily the best, but pretty acceptable for 125 watts worth of TDP.